Chapter 4, Inward Bound, Episode 4. I'm Deb, your host today. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to share a gentle disclaimer. In this podcast, I speak openly about trauma, loss, and healing. My goal is to share my personal journey, not to offer you medical or psychological advice. Please listen with care, be mindful of your emotional state, and take breaks or seek support if any part of this episode brings up different feelings. You're not alone, and you are safe here. And I honor you for joining me. Most parents do the best they can with what they know how to do. Most parents, if they knew better, they would do better. Welcome back to the Inward Bound podcast. Today we step into a deeper layer of the story, a place where clarity meets compassion, and where the past begins to loosen its grip just enough for healing to come through. Episode 4 builds on everything we discovered in the first 3 episodes. The truth-telling, the emotional waves, the courage to remember, and the grace to sit with the parts of the story that were once too painful to touch. I'm not just telling what happened. I'm showing how healing unfolds, layer by layer, as you grow, remember, reclaim, forgive, and rise. I didn't just launch a podcast. I opened a healing journey for myself and for countless others who see themselves in my story. In this episode, we continue walking with the child I once was, offering her safety, language, and presence she never had. And we walk with the adult we are today, steady, wise, and willing to face what once felt impossible. This is where healing deepens. This is where understanding expands. This is where we reclaim our voice, one layer at a time. Take a breath, settle into your body, and let's begin episode 4. When I look back on episode 1 of Inward Bound, what stands out most is the courage it took to begin. Sharing the very first pieces of my story, the losses, the confusion, the separation, and the longing to be understood. Wasn't just the start of a podcast. It was the start of reclaiming the parts of me that had been quiet, forgotten, or pushed aside. Episode 1 opened a doorway. It invited listeners into a space where trauma is not minimized, rushed past, or dismissed. Instead, it's acknowledged with compassion. It sets the tone for everything that will come after: honesty, tenderness, truth-telling, and the kind of reflection that brings healing to both the speaker and the listener. In episode 1, I allowed people to see the child I was, trying to make sense of chaos, far too big for tiny shoulders. The patterns that shape my early life, patterns I've worked so hard to break, the longing for connection that lived quietly beneath the surface, resilience that carried me from my earliest memory to where I am now, sitting behind a microphone, helping others find their own path to healing. This episode wasn't just a story. It was an act of service. By naming what happened, I gave permission for others to name their own experiences. By sharing my mother's pain, my brother's pain, and my own, I created a bridge of understanding where shame begins to loosen its grip and compassion starts to rise. I also began modeling one of the most important truths of this podcast. Healing doesn't start with answers. It starts with awareness. It starts with honesty. It starts with telling the truth about what hurt. Episode 1 did that. And even though the story was hard, I spoke with tenderness, not just for my younger self, but for every listener who has ever carried wounds they didn't have words for. In today's episode, we're opening our hearts and our space to something deeply meaningful. Your questions, your experiences, and your emotional responses to this journey. Every time a listener reaches out and shares what they're feeling, it reminds me that this podcast is not just my story. It's a shared healing path. Your questions help guide where you go, where we explore, and how gently we walk through the memories that rise to the surface. So as we begin this listener question segment, take a break, take a breath. Know that however you respond, Whether with tears, fears, reflection, confusion, or clarity, you are safe here. Your emotions matter. Your story matters. And you are part of a community learning to heal together. Question 1 from a listener. I can't get through the first podcast. All I can do is cry. And what this feedback really means is my story touched a wound that they've been carrying. My honesty is opening places inside them they may have never put words to. Crying is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that something true is finally being felt. I'm helping them access emotions they've suppressed. Many people go decades without crying about childhood pain. Hearing someone else speak their truth unlocks their own. They feel safe enough to feel. People only cry when they sense the storyteller is authentic, compassionate, and trustworthy. My tone and vulnerability create safety. It may be the first time they have seen their own experience reflected. My story invites people to look at their own childhood with honesty and compassion. That is powerful and tender. I want you to know that is not failure. That is healing beginning. Sometimes the body remembers what the mind has tried to forget. If the tears come, let them. You are safe here. You don't have to rush. Listen at your pace. You're not alone. What this says about my podcast. This feedback tells me my podcast is doing exactly what I set out to do. Opening hearts, stirring compassion, releasing old pain, helping people feel seen, creating healing through your story. I'm not just talking, I'm offering a therapeutic experience, and that is rare. Question 2 from a listener. My mom died in a car accident. I was in the car too. She died in my arms. And thank you for sharing something so incredibly painful and tender. There are no words big enough for a loss like that. Losing a mother at such a young age is already heartbreaking. But being there, holding her and witnessing her final moments creates a level of trauma no child is ever meant to carry. What happened to you was not your fault. You were a child. You were powerless in a situation no child could ever understand. When something this traumatic happens early in life, it shapes the nervous system. It shapes attachment. It shapes how you learn to cope, how you trust, how you grieve, and how you protect yourself emotionally. Many adults are still carrying the imprint of something they went through before they even had the language to describe it. You were forced into a moment no child should ever face. Your body, your mind, and your heart did whatever they had to do to survive. If all you can do when you hear stories of childhood trauma is cry, that is not weakness. That is your body releasing grief it never got to process. Tears are not a setback. They are evidence that your story still matters and that your heart is still trying to heal. Please be gentle with yourself. Your pain is real. Your trauma is real, and your healing deserves compassion, time, and safety. You are not alone. And thank you for trusting me with your question and your heart. Each message I receive reminds me that healing doesn't happen alone. It happens when we dare to speak, to feel, and to reach out. If today's conversation touched something tender inside you, give yourself permission to pause, breathe, and take care of the part of you that is waking up. Healing begins with awareness, and awareness often begins with emotion. Remember, you don't have to rush this journey. You don't have to get through anything faster than your heart is ready for. Whether you listen one moment at a time or one episode at a time, you are moving forward. Thank you for listening, for showing up, and for allowing Inward Bound to be part of your healing. May you feel supported, grounded, and never alone in your story. Question 3 from a listener. Why a stepfather might withhold belongings. Sometimes in blended families, a child experiences the painful reality of an adult withholding belongings. Items that should offer comfort, continuity, and a sense of home. When a stepfather refuses to return clothes, toys, furniture, or sentimental items, it can leave a lasting emotional imprint. Their behavior rarely has anything to do with the child. Instead, it reflects the unresolved wounds, fears, and emotional immaturity of the adult making the choice. This may help us gently explore why a stepfather might hold on to a child's things and how these decisions can shape a young person's self-worth, security, and the way they navigate relationships later in life. When a man refuses to return a mother's belongings or even a child's toys, it is almost never about the objects themselves. It's about control, power, and emotional retaliation. Here are the clearest reasons this happens, especially in the context of possibly my story or yours. Number 1 is control and power. Emotionally unavailable, abused men often use belongings as leverage. Controlling items becomes a way to control people. Deny access becomes a form of dominance. Number 2, also punishment for leaving. When a woman leaves or a relationship breaks, some men respond by punishing her. Refusing to give her belongings back is a way to inflict emotional harm or regain a sense of power. Number 3, immaturity and emotional retaliation. Some adults respond to conflict with the emotional maturity of a child. Instead of communicating, they retaliate, often through withholding, blocking, or refusing, even if it hurts the children. Number 4, ownership mentality. Some men view the house, the belongings, and even the people as theirs. If it's in their home, they feel entitled to keep it, even when it causes harm. This belief is rooted in dominance, not logic. Displaced anger. Instead of expressing anger in healthy ways, they redirect it toward the mother. Keeping the belongings becomes symbolic. You don't get to win. And then the children end up suffering the most. 6th reason is emotional abuse pattern. Refusing to return belongings is a common tactic in emotional abuse. It communicates to the person they're taking the stuff from, you have no power, and I decide what you're allowed to have. My mother breaking a window to retrieve our toys shows how desperate and unsupported she felt. Lack of empathy for children. A healthy adult would never deprive a child of clothes, toys, or comfort items. Emotionally unhealthy adults focus on conflict, not the child's needs. The refusal reflects a lack of empathy and emotional maturity. This reveals about my story as my mother was fighting for her children with everything she had. My stepfather cared more about control than the well-being of the children. My child instability was created by adults who failed to protect me, not by anything I did. This moment symbolizes the emotional environment I was forced to survive. When caregivers withhold a child's belongings, the emotional message is louder than the physical act. It tells a child, your feelings don't matter and your comfort doesn't matter. But the truth is the opposite. Your belongings were symbols of your stability and identity, and losing them was a loss that deserved acknowledgement and compassion. By understanding the deeper reasons behind such behavior, you reclaim your emotional story and step into healing with clarity, strength, and self-compassion. This reflection reminds my listeners that their pain makes sense, their story matters, and their inner child deserved so much more than the chaos they were handed. This reflects the deeper emotional meaning behind the event, helping listeners understand the trauma patterns. Inward Bound Podcast Episode 2 opened a deeper chapter of my story. A chapter filled with quick decisions, survival instincts, emotional absence, and the silent confusion a child carries when the world around them changes faster than they can understand. In this episode, I'm inviting listeners into the experience of my mother's second marriage. I explored how she remarried quickly, not out of romance or stability, but out of necessity and survival. I gave a voice to the reality that sometimes adults make choices that are less about love and more about trying to stay afloat. In sharing this part of my story, I showed listeners how children can learn to adapt to instability long before they have language for it. How emotional unavailability in caregivers shapes a child's sense of safety. How trauma doesn't always look like chaos. It can look like disappearing, becoming quiet, or even disconnecting to survive. How witnessing pain in a parent, even without understanding, leaves a deep imprint on the heart. Episode 2 revealed the layers of resilience that formed in me early on. I describe how my mother's new husband drank, how he expressed anger toward my mother and brother, and how as a young child I coped by emotionally disappearing. Protective strategy many listeners recognize in themselves. My compassion grew in this episode, not just for myself, but for my mother, for the impossible choices she had to make, the patterns she didn't know she was repeating, and the pain she never had tools to heal. By sharing this, I pray I give listeners permission to revisit moments in their childhood where things did not make sense. I've offered you a way to understand your parents, limitation without excusing the harm, and I have helped them to see how generational trauma passes quietly from one set of shoulders to the next. Episode 2 is not just storytelling, it's a bridge. A bridge between old memories and new understanding. A bridge between blame and compassion. A bridge between who I was and who I'm becoming. This sets the stage where the healing deepens, and my story continues guiding others toward their own inner clarity and emotional truth. Before I begin, I invite you to take a slow breath, let your heart soften, and allow God's presence to gently surround you. Today, we're answering a deeply important question from a listener about how to heal childhood trauma. Cry? Do we keep crying? Or is understanding enough? This is sacred territory, the place where human pain meets divine comfort. As we step into this conversation, may you feel God's nearness, may you feel His tenderness, and may your spirit rest in the truth that He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Let's move gently, guided by grace, compassion, and the steady love of God. Question 4 from a listener. What is the best way to heal from these traumas? Do you cry? Keep crying? Or does understanding heal it? Healing childhood trauma is not one single process. It's a combination of emotional release, understanding, and restoring safety inside the nervous system. Crying is a form of healing, but not the only form. Crying is the body's natural release system. When we cry about childhood trauma, we are finally releasing grief and fear the child in us could not express. You don't cry forever. You cry until the body says, today. It is not weakness. Understanding brings healing, but only when it reaches the heart. Intellectual understanding is helpful. Trauma lives in the body. Understanding opens the door. Feeling walks through it. Both are needed. True healing is a combination of 3 things: emotional release, otherwise crying, journaling, talking, remembering. Number 2, understanding and reframing, otherwise compassionate, meaning making. Number 3 is safe connection with supportive people, a therapist, or God. Crying eventually changes. At First, it's raw, and then it becomes softer. Eventually, tears turn into peace and compassion for your younger self. Body tells you what it needs. Sometimes the body says, let me cry. Other times, it needs quiet, reflection, understanding, grounding. Healing is a conversation between the adult and the child you once were. Healing is not measured by stopping the crying. Healing shows up as more compassion, less shame, softens triggers, deeper understanding, more peace, the ability to tell the story without collapsing, and a simple way to say this: healing trauma is both crying and understanding. The tears release what the heart held. The understanding gives peace to what the mind could not make sense of. Together, they create healing. Thank you for entering this sacred space today. If this question opened something inside of you, if it stirred emotions and brought up old memories, may you feel this truth settle over your heart. God has never missed one tear. Not one's cried, not one's held in, and not the ones you didn't have the safety to express as a child. He sees your healing, he sees your courage, and he walks beside you, patiently, lovingly, without rush. Understanding brings clarity, crying brings release, and God's presence brings restoration. As we close, may you feel wrapped in his peace, strengthened by his love, and carried by the one who heals in layers, gently and completely. We're going to step into podcast 3's reflection. Before we step into this reflection, I invite you to take a slow breath, let your heart settle. Episode 3 was one of the most emotional episodes so far, an episode that brought buried memories to the surface and revealed the depth of what my younger self lived through. This reflection is not just about recalling the events, but about honoring the child who carried them, the mother who tried her best, and the emotional truth that rose when the story finally came forward. As we begin, let's move gently with compassion and honesty, holding spaces for the heaviness, the courage, and the healing that episode 3 awakened. In episode 3, I revisited the time when my mother broke the window of the playhouse just to get toys for me and my siblings. What makes this moment so powerful, just the action itself, is not just the action itself, but everything it represented. A mother fighting with every ounce of strength she had, family torn apart, a child witnessing desperation that should never fall on little shoulders. I also explored the deeper heartbreak of realizing I had blocked out the divorce, the separations, and the emotional impact of being the older sister trying to make sense of what was happening. Podcast 3 brought forward memories that had been buried, not because they were unimportant, but because they were too painful. And when those memories resurfaced, they asked to be felt, honored, and finally seen. This episode revealed how the body protected me by hiding what I was not ready to face, how my adult understanding can bring compassion to the child I once was, how grief, anger, and clarity rise together when forgotten memories return, how my healing allowed listeners to access their own buried pain safely. The emotional difficulty of recording podcast 3 was part of the healing itself. Every tear, every pause, every moment I had to stop the recording was a sign that my inner child was finally being heard. What once overwhelmed me is now being witnessed with compassion, truth, and strength. Podcast 3 stands as a powerful testimony to what trauma looks like healing in real time. It shows my listeners that remembering is not weakness. Remembering is recovery. And it shows that even the hardest chapters of my story can become pathways to understanding, connection, and hope. This reflection prepares the foundation for the podcast, episode 4, where healing deepens, clarity expands, and the pieces of my story come together with new meaning and new renewed strength. Moving on to question 5 from a listener. Why did your younger sister and brother return to your mom later in life? Elaborate on why your younger sister and brother were back with your mom at the later part of their lives. Children often return to the parent tied to their deepest emotional wound or unmet need. When a child grows up in emotional chaos or inconsistency, they often carry a silent hope. Maybe someday this parent will love me the way I needed. My sister and brother may have been seeking repair, closeness, or unresolved emotional connection. Adults who were not fully nurtured often rely on the parent for safety, identity, or belonging. My sister's mental breakdown and her return to my mother showed she needed familiarity, emotional safety, and the mother she longed for as a child. My brother remained close out of emotional loyalty, responsibility, or trauma bonding rather than actual dependency. Returning to a parent later in life is often an attachment wound pattern. Unhealed trauma pulls people back to the source, hoping to fix what was broken, seeking approval, seeking closure, or longing for the love they never received fully. Each child plays a trauma role and returns to it later. My sister, a fragile one who needed care. My brother, the protector, provider who stayed loyal. And myself, the survivor who emotionally distanced to stay safe. These roles formed early and often resurface into adulthood. Trauma pulls us toward what is familiar, not necessarily what is healthy. My siblings did not return because it was the best choice, but because it was an emotional pattern they knew. It wasn't my mother's fault, and it wasn't theirs. It was a pattern formed by survival, emotional wounds, and unspoken longing. We are now breaking these generational patterns by speaking the truth and bringing compassion and clarity to our story. Question 6 from a listener. Why my younger sister could not continue parenting? Before we step into this tender listening question, take a slow breath and allow the presence of God to settle gently over your heart. Today, we touched a painful and sacred truth about trauma, motherhood, and human limits. This reflection is not about judgment, it is about understanding. It is about seeing the wounded child inside and the adult who struggled. It's about honoring the truth with compassion and spiritual grounding. As we begin, may God's peace steady your mind, may His gentleness soften your heart, and may His presence hold the places where grief, confusion, and compassion all rise at once. Let's move through this moment slowly with grace, truth, and the comfort that only God can give. How my younger sister handled parenting 3 girls and then abandoning them. This is a painful question, and to answer it, we must look through a trauma-informed lens. My sister did not intentionally abandon her daughters. What happened was the result of unhealed childhood trauma, emotional overwhelm, and a nervous system that can no longer cope. Children raised in chaos often parent from survival, not stability. If someone never experienced nurturing, emotional safety, or consistent caregiving, they cannot automatically provide those things as adults. Parenting requires emotional regulation and internal security. Tools my sister was never taught. My sister was operating in survival mode, not parenting mode. Survival mode shows up as emotional shutdown, panic, impulsivity, inconsistency, and withdrawal. This is not neglect from lack of love. It is the collapse that comes from when a person is overwhelmed by stress and trauma. Parenting can trigger unresolved childhood wounds. Seeing her daughter's needs may have reminded my sister of her own unmet needs. This can overwhelm the nervous system and cause emotional withdrawal, not because she didn't care, but because she was flooded with old pain she didn't know how to manage. Her breakdown was not a choice. It was a collapse. When she finally years of carrying pain was because her emotional capacity went out. Abandonment was actually a sign she had nothing left to give. Trauma drains emotional energy. My sister's decision was not a lack of love. It was a result of not having the internal resources to continue parenting. A person cannot give what they never received. She likely carried guilt, shame, and grief afterward. People who collapse under trauma often feel they have failed. They avoid returning, not from lack of care, but because they feel unworthy and overwhelmed by shame. My sister did not fail because she didn't love her children. She failed because trauma overwhelmed her ability to mother. Her story is not about abandonment. It is about a woman carrying more pain than one heart can handle. Her breakdown was a sign of emotional exhaustion, not lack of love. Thank you for entering the sacred space with me today. If this question stirred emotion inside you, grief, confusion, compassion, or anger, may you let God meet you right there. He sees the brokenness that shaped my sister's choices. He sees the pain she carried. He sees the weight she could no longer hold. And he sees the children who were affected by wounds that were never their fault. And as we close, may you feel the truth settle gently in your spirit. Trauma does not erase love. Collapse does not mean failure. And God brings healing even into stories that feel unfinished. May his peace cover your heart. May his compassion guide by understanding. And may his grace continue to lead you forward as I honor my story, my sister's story, and the healing unfolding in my own life. Until next time, may you feel wrapped in his love and strengthened in his presence. Question 7 from a listener. Why would the younger brother never marry or be in a long-term relationship? This question opens the door to understanding how trauma shapes adult attachment, relationships, and emotional safety. Childhood trauma can make long-term relationships feel unsafe. Children who grew up with instability, emotional abandonment, or unpredictable adults often learn closeness is dangerous. People leave. Dependence leads to pain. Avoiding relationships becomes self-protection, not a lack of desire to love. He learned early to survive alone. Some children cope by becoming emotional distant or hyper-independent. They avoid vulnerability because vulnerability once led to hurt, confusion, or rejection. He may have become the invisible burden barrier. In trauma-affected families, one child takes on the role of the fixer, the responsible one, and the child who stays close to the parent. This role makes building an independent adult life difficult. It can create guilt, obligation, or a feeling of being tied to the parent. Emotional intimacy may have felt overwhelming or foreign. If he never received consistent emotional nurturing, he may not have developed the internal tools needed for a healthy, long-term partnership. Love requires vulnerability. Sometimes trauma often suppresses. He did not avoid marriage because he didn't care. He avoided it because commitment requires trust, emotional regulation, and the ability to stay connected during stress. Trauma interrupts these abilities, leaving a person feeling safer alone. His choice reflects survival, not failure. Choosing not to marry in his nervous system's way of keeping him safe. It wasn't a rejection of love. It was a response to pain he experienced as childhood. My younger brother did not stay single because something was wrong with him. He stayed single because trauma taught him that closeness was dangerous, independence was safer, and emotional vulnerability was too painful. His path was shaped by protection, not preference. Question 8 from a listener. Why do you speak slowly? Before we begin this listener reflection, I invite you to just take a slow, deep breath and allow God's presence to settle gently over your heart. Today, we're answering a question about why I speak slowly. And the truth is, the slower pace is intentional, it's spiritual, it's sacred. When we move through stories of childhood trauma, grief, and deep emotional truth, we are walking on holy ground. And rushing through holy ground can make the heart feel unsafe. So as we enter this conversation, may you feel the presence of God, the God who moves gently, the God who whispers rather than shouts, the God who heals in quiet places. May this reflection be held in grace, in tenderness, and the slowing that allows the soul to breathe. Why do you speak so slow? You need to speed up. And thank you for that question. And thank you for listening closely enough by noticing my pacing. I speak slowly on purpose. The stories I share and the memories we walk through together are tender. They require space, breath, and a pace that allows the heart to keep up with the mind. When we talk about childhood trauma, grief, confusion, or emotional pain, the nervous system can easily become overwhelmed. A slower pace helps listeners stay grounded rather than triggered. It gives room for reflection, understanding, and connection with the parts of ourselves we spent years trying to silence. I'm not here to rush through healing. I'm here to hold space for it. For many listeners, especially those who have experienced trauma, a gentle, steady pace feels safe. It feels calming. It feels like someone finally speaking with them instead of speaking at them. With that said, I hear you. Not everyone processes at the same speed. Most podcast platforms allow you to adjust playback speed. If you prefer a faster pace, you can absolutely speed it up to fit your style. But for the purpose of this show and the healing work we're doing together, my natural pace is intentional. It's part of creating a space where emotions can rise, memories can surface safely, and healing can happen without rush. Thank you for noticing, and thank you for listening. Episode 3 uncovered memories long buried, emotional long silenced, the truth my heart was finally ready to see. The difficulty I felt in it, the tears, the pauses, the grief was not a setback, but a sign of deep healing taking place. As we close this reflection, may you honor your strength. May you recognize the bravery it takes to revisit the past with compassion is a step toward restoration. You are healing, you are opening, and I am transforming my story into something that will help others find their own path forward. Until next time, may you feel grounded, supported, and proud of the work you're doing, one layer at a time. Thank you for spending this time with me today, for listening with an open heart, and for honoring the tender places we've explored. Healing isn't loud or dramatic. It's the quiet understanding, the soft truth-telling, and the gentle moments of recognizing how our past still lives in our body, our choices. As you leave this episode, take a deep breath and let yourself feel grounded. You don't need to figure out everything at once. You don't need to revisit the painful parts before you're ready. You're allowed to move at your own pace. Remember, healing unfolds layers, and in every layer, you uncover a step toward clarity, compassion, and freedom, both for yourself and the people you love. Thank you for walking this journey with me. You're not alone, and as always, may peace touch the places in you that have waited the longest. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself. My story started in trauma, but my path became one of awakening. I pray something in each of my Inward Bound episodes reminds you of your own strength, your own wisdom, and your ability to rise and heal with your higher power alongside of you. As you move forward, take a moment to honor yourself. You showed up, you listened, you allowed your spirit to be witnessed. That is powerful. If something in today's episode touched your heart, I invite you to carry it with you. Let it guide you and let it soften places that still ache. Healing is not a destination. It is a returning again and again to who you truly are. I would love to hear your story of healing from losing a parent at a young age or any of the other traumas that we talk about. Please text me. Continue sending me questions. And if you need guidance to help you maneuver your healing, I am a licensed life coach. I worked with a psychotherapist for 20 years, as well as a practicing RN. I would love to hear what helped you, and you may have ideas for my healing. You can also text me at Deb RN InwardBound at AOL.com. Or we have a spot on Reddit if you want to ask questions, and I may even answer your questions on a podcast. Remember, two most important relationships, in my opinion, in our lives is the one we have with our higher power, which is God for me, and the relationship you have with yourself. Thanks for being here, trusting me with your time. Until next time, keep walking forward, keep listening to your spirit, and keep choosing yourself. Inward Bound isn't a retreat. It's a return to truth, a return to parts of you we learned to silence. If this chapter resonated with you, honor that. There's nothing to fix right now. Healing begins with noticing, not repairing. Awareness is brave. Slowing down is brave. Listening is brave. This is Deb's world. Inward Bound opens a door to understanding our behaviors, our relationships, and our coping. And how come we act and react in different situations. Big shout out to my editor, Jordan. Chapter 5 is about life after the divorce. Stay tuned. This may have been your story too. I'm going to close by sending you more love, peace, joy, and happiness. God bless everybody. Thanks.